shrimper's day usually begins early. He needs to be on the fishing grounds by daylight. But when shrimping is poor, he will go out to fish either a high or low tide, as we're doing today. This boat, the 65-foot-long Luana Luisa, is operated by owner Captain Wesley Dickey and one crew member, Raymond Bobbitt. Normally a boat of this size is operated by a captain and two crewmen. When shrimping with only one crew member, nets are usually prepared before leaving the dock. As the nets are lowered, notice the chain and bottom line as they're being placed on the bulwarks. This chain, called a tickler chain, runs directly in front of the mouth of the net, causing shrimp to jump off the bottom when they're touched. The net then sweeps under them and they're caught. Captain Wesley is pulling two 80-foot wide flat nets, one on each side of the boat. Each net must be laid out carefully and the bulk of the body hung in the rigging.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
The floats, which are attached to the top line, are being laid out separately from the chain line to prevent entanglement when the nets go overboard. The amount of flotation used depends upon the type of shrimp being caught and the weather conditions. For example, white shrimp swim off the bottom. Thus more floats are needed to fish the net higher. The bags are kept separated as they are lowered to the deck for the final preparatory step. Each bag has to be tied in such a way that it will not become untied when loaded with the catch, but is easy to release. This is done by first getting the bag ropes even, then placing one loop inside another and pulling the line tight. The process is repeated a minimum of 3 times. This bag knot can be untied easily when the bags are ready to be dumped on deck by alternately pulling one line and then the other until all loops are pulled out. In our final preparations for leaving the dock, all lines are coiled carefully and made ready, as Captain Wesley is doing here.
Okay.
As the spring and stern lines are cast off, we're ready to get underway. Luisa is powered with a 12-cylinder diesel engine which delivers 360 continuous horsepower and consumes an average of 15 gallons of fuel per hour, while it turns a 50-inch diameter propeller. After leaving the dock, while still in calm water, the outriggers are lowered into the dragging position to ensure boat stability. Pulling power of of the boat determines the size of the nets that can be used, and the size of the nets determine the length of the outriggers. If riggers are too short, the nets will become tangled while dragging. Boards or trawl doors, which weigh about 750 pounds per set, are used to spread the nets and hold them on the bottom. Door size is determined by the size and type nets that are being used. Here, we're using doors that are 9 feet long and 40 inches high. The trawl doors are being set out to the end of the outriggers, along with the body of the net. Which are used to set the doors out are then attached to the net for easy access when we're ready to bring them back on board at the end of the day. With 20 years' experience, Captain Wesley has learned to handle these heavy doors with ease using the rope spool on the main winch. Possible, rigs are set out on the outriggers in calm water before running out to the fishing grounds. When the fishing ground has been reached, the balance of the nets are released and made ready for dragging. Lazy lines, which make pulling the bag easier, are connected at the stern of the boat with a small rope called the sugar line, which provides easy access for retrieving the lazy line when the drag is completed. Nets are trailed and checked to be sure they're straight as we move into position to lower them. As nets are lowered into the water, notice the trawl doors starting to spread as they go down. The amount of cable released is determined by the depth of water. 6 feet of cable for every 1 foot of water is a good average to use. Brakes are applied to the winch, and dogs are put in place to prevent the cable from slipping. Next, cable guides are put in place to prepare to rewind the cable in an emergency. Now let's look at how the doors and nets work underwater. Trawl doors pulled at the proper angle and speed will spread the net and hold it on the bottom. Notice the disturbance created behind the doors, forming a visual wall which fish and shrimp are reluctant to swim through. The doors spread the mouth of the net approximately 3/4 of its width and allow the net to sweep everything in its path. Here, floats are added to make the top of the net fish higher in order to catch white shrimp, which tend to swim off the bottom. A tickler chain does its job well, as it's pulled just in front of the net, disturbing the shrimp and making them jump. A small 16 to 18 foot net, called a tri-net, is operated with a separate winch or drum on the main winch. It's pulled in front of the big nets and is checked every 20 to 30 minutes. The tri-net plays an important role. It keeps the captain informed of what is being caught in the big nets and helps him locate shrimp. It also tells him if he is catching an excessive amount of trash or unwanted fish and jellyfish, which could load the big nets to the breaking point. Look at all the animals and debris caught incidentally. The dead marsh grass, which has been washed out of the creek, serves as a valuable food source for microscopic organisms and is the basis of the food chain. Catches of 15 to 20 shrimp per 20-minute drag would be considered a normal try during the shrimping season. Although this try produced only 6 shrimp, they are jumbo size and very valuable. The remainder of the catch is pushed overboard to the delight of ever-present birds. After making a 2-hour drag, it's time to bring the big nets alongside. The entire net is not brought on board after each drag, only the bag. This is done by releasing the sugar line and pulling in the lazy line, which is attached to the bag. The blocks used here are called snatch blocks. They allow efficient one-man retrieval of a bag. As Raymond quickly pulls out the slack in preparation for bringing the bag alongside, Captain Wesley is doing the same on the other side. A trip hook is placed in the ring on the bag flap. This holds the bag in position while it's brought aboard, emptied, and retied. After whip lines are placed on both bags, they are lifted on board at the same time. It looks like a good catch. Notice the bag is untied by pulling the bag ropes alternately as described earlier. Look at the skirt of large webbing around the bag. This chafing gear prevents holes from being worn in the bag as it's drug over the bottom with a heavy load. When the bag has been retied, thrown over the side, and the trip hook is released, we're ready for the next drag. A variety of animals, including crabs and fish, are caught, but only the valuable shrimp and most desirable fish are kept. Captain Wesley swings into position to reset the nets. He will make 4 to 5 drags a day. The shrimp are separated as they're headed, but when catches are good, shrimp are picked up with the heads on and headed later. The remainder of the catch is returned to the ocean and eaten by birds and other animals. The shrimp are washed thoroughly and quickly iced. When ice is mixed in the shrimp, as is being done here, the catch will stay fresh for several days without re-icing. It's time to begin the messy job of shaking out the nets. They must be cleaned thoroughly as they're brought on board and hung in the rigging to dry. Preparation is being made to pull the trawl doors back on board. The trawl doors are being lifted with the door ropes while the cables are slowly released. If care is not taken, the heavy trawl doors could do severe damage to the boat at this point or injure someone. Fishing is one of the most dangerous occupations and demands alertness at all times. Handling heavy equipment is tricky, particularly in rough waters. make our way home, all gear must be stowed and preparations made for the next day. The Southeastern Shrimp Boat is rigged to be the most labor-efficient fishing vessel ever designed. 2 men can safely operate a boat of this size, but it requires constant care and maintenance, and good men. Shrimping is the kind of job everyone dreams of having, the kind of adventure found nowhere else. The travel, the independence, the romance of the sea. The shrimper, much like the farmer, must deal with many factors which determine the harvest each season will bring. Weather is a major factor. If the winter is not too severe and the rainfall is within reason, the shrimper may look forward to a good year's harvest. He's having to cope with water pollution, fluctuating prices for his catch, and soaring operating cost. But the shrimper always looks forward with high expectations. He becomes a breed apart, a breed that learns to live with all that shrimping has to offer, the bad times and the good times.
Yes,